Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church, Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and this video is about a historic and extremely unusual church in the Derbyshire Peak District. This is the Church of St Martin, Stoney Middleton. The first record we have of a church here is in 1415, when the church was built by Joan, heir of Padley, in thanksgiving for the safe return of her betrothed Robert from the Battle of Agincourt. However, in 1757 there was disastrous fire and the medieval church was completely destroyed apart from the tower. They could have rebuilt on the original foundations. Instead, the decision was made to build something more 18th century, something more interesting than an average, normal, medieval-style church, nave, chancel, maybe aisles. And what was built was an octagonal rotunda in a neoclassical style. It feels very much like, and these things existed in the late classical, early medieval period. You see them, for example, the baptistry at Ravenna. And it's that kind of neoclassical octagonal rotunda that we have here, something of great beauty, something quite impressive. So as we have a look around, we'll see how it is that this rotunda is different from other churches. The builder was a local stonemason called John Booth, who was employed by the 4th Duke of Devonshire in rebuilding the stables at Chatsworth, for example. It's supposed that Booth was the architect, although it seems unlikely that he would have just made the decision himself. Rather, the patron would have decided, no, we want an octagonal church here. Originally there would have been a gallery and a 3-decker pulpit in front of the chancel, but that of course has gone in a major Victorian restoration in 1861, and then again in 1953 there was work done on the building that moved the pulpit to its present location, and we'll see that as we go around. So there we are, that's the introduction. Let's have a look around this building. The 18th century sees itself very much as an age of reason, but also there is a return to the neoclassical. So the medieval style is rather disparagingly by some called Gothic, and it comes out of fashion. Here we have very much a church in the round. It's intended to centre everything on this position in front of the communion table. It isn't centred on the chancel. In fact, the chancel is a tiny little vestigial thing. The pulpit has been moved to one side. That was done in the 1950s, and the organ is behind it. Before the 1950s, they would have been forward a bit, but still, it is, the arrangement of the pews, of course, is very, very much original, but everything else has been very much altered. For example, gallery has been taken down. We've got these round windows. Here again, so a couple of them now have stained glass in them, but here again this is this neoclassical style. The font is this little pseudo-medieval birdbath type. There was an older one, it disappeared during renovations at some point. So there's the font. Turn around and we have the tower screen. The tower is of course the porch now. And the tower screen, it dates from the 1930s, 1938 I believe, so just before the Second World War. Again, these round windows. Originally, of course, all the glass would have been plain. Looking up into the octagon, we've got this central, and again it's a very neoclassical style, we've got this central clerestory of Diocletian windows, and this, well, it's now an electrolier. There would have been a chandelier in the middle originally, and there's the construction of the roof, which of course has to be done very carefully to make sure that it works on this setting. Here is the organ. We'll have a look at the organ. It's quite a large organ given the location, and it is from Cousins, Sons and Co. City Organ Works, Lincoln. No pedal board, but we have got the you see there, that would have been originally foot pumped. It's now, like all of these things, it's blown electronically. It's electrically blown. The pulpit is much too narrow. The original would have probably been wider. It has been reduced in size because they thought it was too prominent. It obscured the communion table. Well, that's part of the point of this. We have here the reading desk and lectern, and the chancel, the reredos, is quite a simple stone reredos in memory of the fallen and in fact the deliverance from the Second World War. And then we have Christ the Good Shepherd at the back. There's not a lot of memorials, but there's this one to Matthias Furness of Middleton Bank, died 31st of March 1832, aged 80 years. Deborah, his wife, died 23rd November 1820, aged 68 years. Matthew, their son, an infant, died 13th of June 1785. James, their son, died at Sheffield, and so on. We've just shifted outside because there are other visitors, and don't want to monopolise the building from other people who want to see it. And you can see from the outside how we have this rather incongruous appearance with this medieval, this 15th century tower. It has been slightly altered in terms of windows and the door, but we have this medieval west tower, and then behind it we've got this whacking great Roman style rotunda, and it's a marvellous building. It's a great example of how in the 18th century you have this experimentation about church buildings. There isn't this idea that you get in the 19th century, oh, they've got to look a certain way. There are people who say, well, why don't we build something that's modelled on these rotundas that you find in some parts of Europe in the Carolingian period, for example? Why don't we have something that looks a bit more neoclassical? And why don't we do something more adventurous in terms of shape? Because an octagon is quite good if you're building a preaching church. So let's have a look around the outside and make some observations about the exterior. St Martin's, as I say, you look at this tower and you think, well, it's never very tall, was it? And of course it wasn't, because a lot of these Derbyshire churches, you build a tower as high as you need it, and you don't want something that's too tall for reasons. Here we're quite close to a stream. Building it too tall, the underlying geology might not have put up with it. But as we go around, little yew tree in the way, we see this wonderful basilica there. You can see the vestry there. That's rather interesting. This wonderful octagon, and it is very much, this is neoclassical. Let's have something that feels Roman, not Roman Catholic, but Roman, as in ancient Roman. Nice big vestry, flat roof, which is original. I don't have too many problems. There you can see the clerestory at the top, which is very typical of the sort of architecture. You've got these great big memorials stones here. That's a whacking great one, as tall as I am, and which is about 6 foot tall, this memorial stone. Philip, son of there we are. And here we can see again, here you can see there the chancel. You see how tiny the chancel is, because again, this is not a place. This is a place where, as a building that is built for preaching. It's built. The emphasis is we are a preaching church. We have preaching services here, and when we have communion, it's going to be quarterly, perhaps less than quarterly in the 18th century when this is built. And it's a shape that says this is for preaching. John Wesley had many of the Methodist chapels built this shape. They were later, most of these octagons were demolished and replaced with bigger buildings, because of course you can see here one of the problems with building this shape is you can't extend it very easily. You could perhaps put on transepts and make it into a Greek cross, but that's about all, and with a galleried octagon you can't even do that. But it is an interesting building, almost Byzantine in its layout, although it's using this neoclassical motifs and not the Byzantine motifs, but it feels like Byzantine. You might expect to find it in Constantinople, the city now known as Istanbul, but originally, of course, it's called Constantinople. It's built by the Emperor Constantine as his city, and it does feel almost sort of Constantinople, this building. It feels like it belongs in that era. And so it's quite incongruous to find this Byzantine style octagon with this 15th century tower on the front. But that is the glory that is St Martin's Stoney Middleton. Well, I'll have a few closing words and then end the video shortly. So here we are, Stoney Middleton, St Martin's Stoney Middleton. It's a surprising thing to find in the Peak District, this Byzantine octagon attached to this 15th century tower. But it's a marvellous example of, as I've said, how in the 18th century you have this idea, why do parish churches have to be this particular shape? Why can't we have a different shape that works better for what we want to do with it, in this case preaching? Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and again, I hope to continue making videos like this going out. It's much easier now. Things have calmed down a bit, and go out into the Peak District and explore like this. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy these videos. I enjoy making them, and may God bless you and keep you out this time. Thank you again.